This situation has stopped being merely dramatic and has tipped headfirst into something far more unhinged. Because every single day the Toronto Blue Jays wake up, the off-season seems to grow teeth, bare them, and grin back. What once felt like a patient chess match has become a live wire crackling with tension, and right now it centers on two names that refuse to leave the conversation: Kyle Tucker and Bo Bichette. Welcome back to Blue Jays News, because if you blink, you might miss the moment this entire pursuit either turns into a masterstroke or spirals into absolute chaos. There is something almost theatrical about the way this saga has unfolded, as if the baseball gods themselves are dragging it out for maximum suspense. Just when fans begin to settle into resignation, another report drops, another whisper grows louder, and suddenly the volume is turned right back up. If you are enjoying these daily deep dives and you want to stay right at the heart of this madness, take a second to like the video, share it with a fellow Jays fan, and subscribe to Blue Jays News, because this is not slowing down anytime soon. The epicenter of the storm remains Kyle Tucker, and the reason it feels so intense is because this is no longer idle speculation. When Ken Rosenthal speaks, the league listens, and his words carried real weight when he stated that Toronto currently sits as the leader in the Tucker sweepstakes. That is not a throwaway line, not clickbait, not smoke without fire. This is a respected voice pointing directly at the Blue Jays and saying, quite plainly, that this is the big move everyone should be watching. The longer this drags on, the more revealing it becomes. Free agency has a rhythm to it, and Tucker is deliberately stepping outside of that rhythm. Teams are meeting, conversations are happening behind closed doors, and yet the field has not widened in the way you might expect for a player of this caliber. That in itself tells a story. When a market refuses to explode, it is often because the player and a select few suitors are locked in a quiet, stubborn stare-down. Another report, one that somehow slipped under the radar, added even more fuel. According to industry sources cited by Mark Feinsand, Toronto remains the most likely destination for Tucker, particularly after the organization sent a clear message by extending Vladimir Guerrero Jr. That move was not just about Vladdy. It was a signal flare fired into the night sky, telling the league that the Blue Jays are no longer dabbling. They are pushing their chips to the center of the table. Baseball front offices do not operate in isolation. One move echoes into the next, and signing Dylan Cease already shifted the perception of this roster. Adding Kyle Tucker would not just be another transaction. It would be the final brushstroke on what would suddenly look like a ruthless 12-month transformation. Reporters like Robert Murray have echoed similar sentiments, even suggesting that Tucker himself is genuinely intrigued by the idea of wearing Blue Jays colors. That is not leverage. That is interest. Of course, where there is interest, there is also pressure, and pressure invites gamesmanship. Enter the New York Mets, who have abruptly been painted into this picture by John Heyman. The Mets, we are told, are very much in the mix, though facing stiff competition. For some fans, that line alone was enough to trigger alarm bells. For others, it smelled suspiciously familiar, like the classic late-stage free agency maneuver designed to squeeze out a few extra million. The Mets make sense on paper. They offer geography, the National League, and the gravitational pull of New York. But this is where nuance matters. Ken Rosenthal himself pointed out that a short-term, high-average annual value deal is unlikely to cut it for Tucker. This is a player looking for security, length, and legacy. That immediately tilts the table back towards Toronto, because the Blue Jays are one of the few teams clearly prepared to go long if the price aligns with their internal valuation. This is why the situation feels like it is spiraling while simultaneously inching towards resolution. The same names circle the same conversations, yet the tension keeps tightening. And just when it seems the Tucker story alone is enough to carry an entire offseason, Bo Bichette steps back into the spotlight and turns the dial even further. Reports emerge that Bichette is seeking a contract in the vicinity of $300 million, a figure that would have sounded absurd not long ago, but now sits uncomfortably within the realm of possibility. The Philadelphia Phillies have not just sniffed around this idea, they have leaned into it. A meeting is scheduled. Roster contingencies are being mapped out. Alec Boehm and even JT Realmuto suddenly feel like chess pieces rather than cornerstones. There is a deeply human element to this part of the story. Bo Bichette is not just weighing money and markets, he is weighing relationships. Don Mattingly's presence in Philadelphia matters. Their connection in Toronto was real, and in a league defined by numbers, those personal bonds still have gravity. When you hear credible voices suggest that the Phillies have emerged as the favorite, it stops feeling like idle gossip and starts feeling like momentum. Momentum is dangerous because it forces decisions. For the Blue Jays, this is where the offseason threatens to split into two radically different narratives. Lose Bichette but land Tucker, and the story becomes one of painful sacrifice for strategic gain. Lose both, and suddenly all the early praise evaporates, replaced by questions that will linger for years. That is why every Tucker update feels heavier now. There is an unspoken understanding that the first domino to fall may determine the fate of the second. Fans can sense it. Front offices can sense it. Even the silence between reports feels loaded, like the pause before thunder. At the same time, the organization is juggling quieter, but no less important matters. Arbitration looms for players like Ernie Clement and Tyler Heineman. Reminders that roster building is not only about stars, but about the connective tissue that holds a team together. Clement's case, in particular, is fascinating, given his unconventional path and sudden impact. These decisions may not dominate headlines, but they shape the margins where seasons are often won or lost. If you have made it this far, do me a favor and tap that like button, because this kind of deep daily coverage only works when the community pushes it forward. Share this with a fellow Jays fan who is refreshing their feed just as obsessively, and make sure you are subscribed to Blue Jays News, because when the next shoe drops, you will want to be here. The truth is, this off-season has taken on a personality of its own. It feels restless, impatient, almost alive, pacing back and forth as if daring the Blue Jays to flinch. Ross Atkins has already shown a willingness to act, but this is the moment that defines whether boldness becomes brilliance or caution becomes regret. And so we wait, watching reporters, parsing language, reading between lines, knowing that at any moment a single notification could rewrite the entire story. Whether it ends with Kyle Tucker stepping into Rogers Center to a roar, or Bo Bichette packing his bags for Philadelphia, or some shocking twist no one saw coming, one thing is certain. This is not a quiet winter. This is not a forgettable off-season. This is a high-stakes drama unfolding in real time. Let me know your thoughts down below, because this conversation is far from over. No matter how wild it gets, Blue Jays News will be right here, tracking every development, cutting through the noise, and bringing you the story as it happens. Cheers and buckle up.